Hey, you're live.
Hi, we are reconvening our morning hearing with an introduction to Serve, Learn, Earn. Welcome.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation, Chair Sheldon. My name is Breck Noft. I am the Executive Director of Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. I live in Huntington, Vermont. It is great to be back in this committee. I know this is the start of the new biennium, and some folks are new to this committee, so it's a little bit of a refresh for old friends and an overview for folks who may be new to Serve, Learn, Earn. I'm joined by my colleague Kate Gluckman, who's Serve, Learn, Earn Director. We're a bit of a tag team duo here, so what I'll do is give a brief overview of why Serve Learn exists, what's the challenge, what's the problem, if you will, that we're trying to solve, and a little bit of the philosophy behind the collaboration. You can see on the screen that we're a workforce development collaboration with four primary organizations, but many other additional partners. We came together in 2020 and have received funding from the state legislature for 4 years. One of the central roles that I think all of us collectively share is responsible use of taxpayer dollars. And one of the things that's going to be really helpful when Kate comes up to talk is to really demonstrate the return on state investment of how those funds have been used and the return that the state has received. But I think what would be helpful for me to start with is a bit of the why Serve, Learn, Earn came into existence. And the way in which I think it's helpful to share that story is to go back to 2020 in the dark days of the pandemic, if you will. And VYCC was really thinking hard about how can we leverage the power of service to create accessible and relevant training opportunities for young adults living here in Vermont. And we had a realization that Vermont is very much program rich, but systems poor. We see a lot of entities and organizations working in isolation, and there's a siloing effect. And as VYCC looked at that phenomenon, we felt like there's an opportunity for people and organizations to come together and collaborate more effectively in ways to serve Vermont more effectively. And one statistic that helps identify the focal area for Serve, Learn, Earn is this one, which is Vermont has one of the highest high school graduation rates in the country. Our high school graduation rate is about 92, 93%. And yet we have a college matriculation rate of about 53%. So what that means is approximately half of our population graduates from high school, but then doesn't go on to college. And yet we know that continued education is really good for employers who want a workforce that's well trained, that's skilled. And it's also, of course, very good for Vermonters whose career earning potential increases the more education they have. So how do we make it so that those folks aren't falling through the cracks? That's what Serve, Learn, Earn has come together to address. We know more specifically that there's a shortage of workforce development opportunities and trained workers in critical sectors like the trades, green jobs. I know this committee is thinking hard about green jobs, outdoor recreation, the service industry, agriculture, and even outdoor education. So Serve, Learn, Earn, these are the types of projects that Kate will share that we're focused on. Over the course of our 4 years together, we've learned a lot from one another. We've been able to connect our training experiences to provide more opportunity for participants. So we're seeing participants, of course, going from our programs into the workforce. We're also seeing our participants move from one program to another. And so there's a logical progression. And the reality is that some folks need more support and longer durations of support. And so if you can have one program be an introductory experience, and then another program be an experience where they can take what they've learned and then be in a position where they have more responsibility, earn higher wages, gain more credentials, and be able to develop personalized relationships with those folks, and to have staff at different organizations know you've done a great job here. Here's your next opportunity. You can move from Resource to VYCC. You can move from Audubon to Vermont Works for Women. That wasn't happening before, and it's been fun to see the way in which that progression has really come together. So who we serve. Over the last 3 program years, we have enrolled approximately 1,500 participants. So it's a significant number of individuals who are coming in and through our programs. And in this past year, approximately 70% of our 600 participants are under the age of 24. So we're really looking at that rising workforce with a focus there. Many of our participants are students. Most are new to the workforce. A good number are overcoming barriers such as addiction, poverty, or even justice involvement. One of the things that is also important to note here is 4 organizations, different missions, different types of programs, serving different demographic groups. Yet there's a through line. There's really 2 through lines through our 4 organizations. One, serve, learn, earn. So it's all service-based, it's all training, and each participant earns a wage or a stipend, which is important if you're thinking about accessibility, because it's hard to make a transition from one job to another and lose a paycheck. So you can enter our programs, still be earning compensation as a way of getting your training. The other consistency in the model is that all of our training experiences are cohort-based. So there's a sense of community when you come into our organization. And I know that's a bit meta or philosophical, if you will, but I think if you're looking at the life of a young adult, adolescence can be really isolating. Living in rural Vermont can be isolating. Oftentimes, our participants lack networks, don't know how to access that next job. And yet our 4 organizations, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say we know everyone in Vermont. So if you want to be a welder, if you want to be a mechanic, if you want to be an HVAC installer, all of these opportunities are places in where we can connect Vermonters. And so that cohort base and that network is a real asset that we bring to this work. So I have two final thoughts here before I turn the mic over to Kate. I talked a little bit about career pathways and the way in which we're connecting participants through our organizations. As a follow-up, we'll share a great article that just came out in 7 days. We're providing an overview, a philosophical understanding of what we do, data, facts. That's different than sharing stories. And I imagine that all of you are reading a lot these days as you're trying to make responsible decisions. This would be a really fun bit of reading for you all. It won't be as dry as the other stuff you have to read. So we'll share that as a way of a follow-up because there's some fun stories in there. And the other thing I want to do in my last couple of minutes here is to introduce Kate as director of Serve, Learn, Earn. So when Serve, Learn, Earn came together, we really had 4 executive directors who were holding this coalition together. And it was really exciting. And yet we felt, and we were proud of what we were accomplishing. And yet at the same time, I think we felt like we were just scratching the surface of what was possible. Kate has come in and helped coordinate our collaboration in a way that's moved us from parallel play to really inter-organization programmatic development, programmatic implementation. And that has really enhanced the way in which we've served Vermonters. It's also helped us secure additional and new sources of private philanthropy. So our goal is to use the state funds for direct program expenses and to use private philanthropy for the administrative costs that are associated with programs. Again, at the beginning of what I was saying here, we all have a shared responsibility to use taxpayer dollars as smartly and responsibly as possible. and private philanthropy is a way in which that enhances that goal. The other two things that we've done is we've really expanded our programs, and there's different metrics by which you can measure growth. You can think about geographic reach, so we're in more communities. You can think about the season of programs, so we're now year round, where we used to not have that calendar of programs. Think about the number of participants, and you can think about the types of programs that we're all offering. And all of those are places where we've seen growth and evolution. And then finally, we're able to track and analyze data more effectively across 4 organizations. And that's been that's a challenge for organizations in and of themselves. And then when you do that across 4 organizations, derive at consistent metrics. And you'll see that in the way in which Kate has prepared data for us to look at. And keeping with this theme, we're just getting started on that because we're excited to share we have a new position that we'll be hiring to really track and measure that ROI on our efforts. So Representative Sheldon, what we've done in the last couple of committees that we've been in is I've talked and then Kate's talked, and then we've had time for Q&A. So should we bring up Kate? Does that sound good?
Okay, sure.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this time today. Kate Gluckman, I live up in North Troy, very excited to be with you. And thank you for past support from this committee and for the time today. So I want to dig in a little bit deeper into like what we actually do across Serve, Learn, Earn. I want to start just by acknowledging some other partners that are really critical in the work that we do. At the forefront of that is Forest Parks and Recreation. So Agency of Natural Resources is where our funding through the state flows through. And that might seem surprising to you as we're a workforce development collaborative. You might be thinking, why not DOL? But I want to just talk about what the partnership with FPR allows us to do and why it's the right place for us. So first and foremost, we're training folks in conservation, the trades, and where those overlap in terms of green building or clean energy. And Forest Parks and Recreation has experts in those fields. So not only are they doing that work across the state, or Agency of Natural Resource doing that work across the state, but our participants get to interact with those professionals, and that's tremendous network building and learning opportunities. The second, and something that maybe, at least I know I didn't think about a lot, is that FPR is actually one of the biggest landlords in the state in terms of the state parks. And the infrastructure that's needed to keep up is actually a wonderful learning lab for our participants, and really offers us such tremendous service opportunities in making sure that those state parks remain accessible for all Vermonters. And so although it is unique, we believe that FPR is exactly where we should be. I also want to just mention Serve Vermont and the AmeriCorps programs. We co-enroll participants in Serve, Learn, Earn programs and Serve Vermont programs. AmeriCorps is a powerful federal program that promotes service to career pathways, and we work closely with Serve Vermont in the Agency of Human Services. Also, we just piloted a new program with Northwood Stewardship Center up in the NEK to support their youth conservation crews. We'll continue to do that this year. We're excited about that work. I wanted to offer you just a quick glimpse into the continuum, I've difficulty saying that word, of programming that we offer. So you can think of a couple different spectrums of work. One, the types of careers we're training folks in terms of conservation through the trades, but then also the ages of folks that we're working with. A 14-year-old needs something very different than a 44-year-old, right? And so we really group our programming in 3 buckets, useful for folks as they progress in their careers. I'm going to highlight one program in each of these buckets just to give you an example of what a program might look like there. So starting with career exploration, these are programs focused on high school age students. So we serve 14 years and older. These are programs that expose students to different types of careers. And so I'm highlighting today for you the Junior Conservation Tech program at Audubon, Vermont. So this is a program that offers high school students a chance to work with the professionals at Audubon, whether that's their foresters or their biologists or folks in land management, learning how we're thinking about interacting, analyzing our environment for conservation, land management purposes. They do service projects on Audubon's campus in Huntington, maintaining and creating new public trails on that land there. The next bucket of programming is that early professional experience. You can think of this as a really high quality first job where students are learning specific skills in a career, but also learning how to be a professional and what that looks like. I'm highlighting today Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, VYCC's programs. VYCC has two programs, the Food and Farm program and the Conservation program. The Food and Farm program teaches young people how to grow food, how to have a sustainable and organic farm here in Vermont. The outcome of that work is about 70,000 pounds of food grown each year. And this food is distributed to low-income Vermonters through a program that's a prescription veggie service. I didn't say that quite right, but or a CSA that is distributed through health providers across the state. The second program is the conservation program. This is young crews working on trail maintenance, on infrastructure building in state parks, forestry, and water quality projects. You can see that they're gaining credentials of value. And what I mean by that is that those are skills that employers look for to know, what folks know and know that they would qualify for jobs. And so OSHA 10 is a construction credential. Game of logging is chainsaw safety. Wilderness first aid, obviously, a little self-explanatory. The thing too that we're working on is providing these high school age students high school and college credit. So through the flexible pathways legislation, we're now working with high schools to say what's happening in the summer in our programs deserves credit, is a very valuable learning experience, and finding a lot of success with high schools being eager to award credit to students in that way. Additionally, we're working with CCV and UVM to provide college credit for these courses. VYCC already provides credit through CCV for their crew leaders. And this year at UVM will be the first year we'll get credit. Students will have opportunities for credit there. I think that's a really great example of how Serve, Learn, Earn is sort of working within and between the education and workforce development systems here in the state. And then the last bucket of programming is more traditional workforce development program. You might expect shorter trainings leading right directly into work with an employer. So I'm highlighting two programs, but they do very similar things, working with different clientele. Resource has a 101 intensive training program, and Vermont Works for Women has a program called Trailblazers. These are 6 or 7 week courses where the first 4 weeks are spent in a classroom, in a workshop, learning skills and building those credentials of value. So you can see here, OSHA 10 and CCER, both construction-based credentials of value. EPA 608 is the credential that allows you to install heat pumps here in Vermont. So really, these are necessary trainings for folks to enter the field. And then those last 2 weeks are spent with employers on the job training. And this is a wonderful opportunity for both the employers to assess a potential employee at no risk. They're not paying them. They don't have to insure them. Our programs do all that for our clients or for our trainees. And then our trainees get a chance to spend time with an employer, learn about what the career looks like day to day. They might split their time with a couple employers to see different options, and those often end with a job offer. This picture here is of a newly developed heavy equipment training program through Resource. We did it at VYCC's campus, so that's another way that we're working together to offer more opportunities. And so we're excited about collaborations like that. I want to just go back to, and this picture is of a VYCC crew repairing a roof on a state park. So the infrastructure build program works with state parks across the state, improving small structures like these. And it's a wonderful opportunity to develop those basic construction skills. So across our 4 years here, just some trends that we're seeing. Breck mentioned these, right? We're seeing continued growth in the participants that we serve, in the number and length of trainings that we have, exponential growth in the number of credentials of value that Vermonters are gaining. And the last one is just the level of public funding that we have. The dark blue line is the line we're currently in. And so those are projections. We report to FPR twice a year, and we're well on our way to meeting those. I want to talk about our outcomes. So a successful outcome for us, we have 3 that we're looking for. One is that, did a person get a job coming out of our program? Did they continue in education, or are they continuing their training or service experience? And so of the people that are looking to go into a job, and that's only about 1/3 of the folks that we're looking for, because remember, we're serving majority 14 to 24-year-olds, 62% of those trainees are offered a job at the end of our program. And we feel very good about that outcome, knowing the challenges and barriers folks have to employment. You can see here, these are where all of our trainees are from last year. So really working across the state. Some of our programs rotate where they're located. Others recruit folks, train them in one place, and then send them back out to do service projects.
Representative Austin.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Of those 62% that are offered a job, how many take the job and how many stay on the job?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The percent, okay, so I just know the raw numbers. We had I think about 85% take the job.
Okay.
The reason that we like to account for both is because oftentimes especially in the trades, the work atmosphere or the benefits are not as flexible or not what our participants need. We find that a lot within the Vermont Works for Women programs, where women are going into non-traditional trades. And there's a lot of challenges to that. And so we don't feel like, there's things we can control, there's things we can't. And certainly working with our employers is something that we do to create welcoming and accepting work environments. But yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. This map shows where our projects were located last year. And we group our projects into 7 buckets. I want to just highlight a couple for you that are aligned with the work that you do in this committee. So we have habitat assessment and habitat improvement projects. So our trainees at Audubon are really learning how to analyze environments for land management, bird conservation purposes. This is the work training that a forester might need to do. Our trainees at VYCC, are going into forests and working on forestry projects, invasive species removal in Lake Champlain, really helping to preserve and repair our environment. Trail and outdoor recreation projects, obviously the state infrastructure is incredibly important to work on. And then a big bucket of our programs have done flood recovery over the last 2 years with a focus in the Barre area, and helping not only in terms of rebuilding homes, but also in terms of land repair, stream bed restoration, that kind of work. So my last slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our budget. Each year, It's over $10 million to run all of our programs. Our partners are raising about $8.5 million of those through federal funding, through private philanthropy. We'll continue to do that work and feel that through the collaborative, we actually can approach national and larger funders to support this work. And we've done that. Most recently, we received a grant through the Ascendium Foundation. We're the first Vermont grantee that they've ever supported to do our workforce development programs for our 18 plus trainees. We're also working with the Department of Labor closely to pursue a work grant initiative, and this is the workforce opportunity for rural communities, something that is a really important part of us securing federal funding is for folks to recognize that as a rural state, we often can't compete with our big cities across the nation, and so specific rural strategies are really needed. So we are asking the legislature this year for $2.5 million. This is the same ask that we had last year through Agency of Natural Resources, Forest, Parks and Recreation. We were successful in being in the base budget, a portion of our funding last year. Very grateful for the support of this committee and your budget letter for that work. And so I'll stop there and take any other questions.
Thank you.
One more point on this
Yes.
last budget slide, Kate.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me as you were talking, that no funder wants to be alone. Funders want company. And one of the things that we've realized over the last several years is that the philanthropic community finds it really compelling when the state is a partner. And as we've been able to secure funds through the base budget, it's a signal to the philanthropic community that the state believes in this work and that the philanthropic investment is going to be sustained over the long haul. And so, I'm imagining as you all look at this, you're pleased to see the amount of private philanthropy and other funds that we'll bring to this. But from the philanthropic side, they look at this and they say, oh, that's really great that the state is investing in this as well. So there's a reciprocity there that I think is important to underscore.
Representative Bartholomew.
You said the ask was 2.5 million. How much should you get?
2 last year.
Thank you.
Representative Austin.
Yep. Just wondering, and you might have said this, and you can always get back to me. I don't
Yeah.
expect you to have all this, at the top. But what kind of coordination do you do with the Vermont University, VTC, and public schools? Like, do you get into public schools to let students know about this opportunity?
Yes, so each of our partners have robust recruiting processes.
Mhm.
And a lot of that, it works well that many of our youth programs are in the summer, right?
Mhm.
So really looking at our programs as an extension of the learning that folks are doing, especially within the CTEs, right? So those students have identified themselves as interested in the trade. We can further that experience during the summers. And oftentimes too, what we've heard from CTE staff is that it's actually difficult to get students on the job training because of issues of risk and insurance.
Mhm.
We don't have those, we value safety, but we don't have that issue. We're prepared to cover that risk. And so students are able to explore a little bit deeper into the career than they might with an employer.
And do you have a list of credentials that students can come out with? I mean, at
Yeah.
some point, I'd love to see that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely
When it's
follow up with that.
convenient.
Yeah, no, I can shoot you an email today.
Great,
No
thank you.
problem.
Yeah, Representative Pritchard.
Yeah, so this is great. The CTE thing I was gonna ask for. How many of your participants don't go on to secondary education? And the reason I ask this is when I was in the workforce, I was in the automotive field and I worked closely with Burr Burton and the Stafford Training Center. And what was important to me were kids that weren't going to go to college and really didn't have hope for, but had a talent in another area. So I worked closely with them for many years, placed a lot of kids, I think changed their lives.
Yeah.
And so this is important to me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at those kids.
Sure. So that's actually a very difficult thing for us to know, right? It's like if you go back at all We have very strong, check-in systems up until about a year. And then after that, we don't have staff capacity. We don't have the ability to stay in touch. We want to, right? And so that's one of the things we're really working on with the Department of Labor, is to see if some of their systems can help us understand the long-term impact of our programs, especially around wage data. So we might not know if they are going on to secondary 3 or 5 years after graduating from our program, but we'll be able to see their wage progression. And so that's something that we're hoping we'll be able to establish a data sharing agreement with DOL this year.
It's an important segment to me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And two, I think that our institutes of higher education are doing such a great job of making it easier to get back into that system as an adult or as a later young adult, right? In terms of free programming and just offering just a plethora of different kinds of credentialing opportunities, not just a associate's or a bachelor's.
Yeah. See, we would do the same thing through the program. We would have the student for a block. We would try to arrange it where it would be a morning or an afternoon. The percentage rate of the students that I dealt with, I mean, it was 80 to 90% of them joined the workforce after they got out of high school. And many of them are still with that, getting, from the automotive standpoint, free factory training, free, they're getting a free college education, and they're contributing.
Yeah.
And they're in a spot that they probably would never have been.
One of the things that we're really excited about is DOL's clarification and improvement of the apprenticeship system. And so we're finding that there is, what we're really looking to do is to have people placed into our program and then getting that job as an apprentice with that employer. Because then we know that they're going to get continued training, continued wage growth. And that will really, enable them to, even if the starting wage is lower, we know that there's going to be growth there. And so one of the exciting opportunities that is being developed at VYCC is a timber framing apprenticeship. So this is a heritage trade here. It's also of interest to young people who might not think, commercial construction is for them, but they love sort of the science and the connection to the forestry and timber framing. And so we're using the VYCC campus as a learning lab as we're restoring these old barns on VYCC's campus to teach folks over 17 weeks and then placing them with a timber framing housing, house builder at the end of it. So we're piloting that this year. Looking forward to how that turns out.
Representative North.
Yes, thank you. First, I just wanted to share some statistics that I calculated myself based on your data there, and then I'll ask a question. But so out of the 615 participants, if 62% of those are offered jobs and about 80% of those are accepted, that means actually produced about 300 workers in 1 year, actually into the state of Vermont that stayed here.
So it's only those trainees looking for positions, 62% of those. So we had about 170 people looking to get employed coming out of our programs. 62% of that is about 109, I believe.
Okay. So, and
It's still awesome.
But I just want to,
that's gonna change the next number, because then I calculated based on the $2 million invested, how much is it costing per trained employee in the state of Vermont? And I was calculating about $6,500 based on 300, but it's only 100 employees. It's about 3 times that, about $19,000 per trained employee.
absolutely. I would just also say too, when we're thinking about our rate of return, is like, yes, we're focused on placing people into great jobs. We're also, I think that second level of impact is that service and those projects that we're completing. And so when we think about numbers, what's been hard for us is to be like, well, how much does it cost when VYCC repairs a trail, or how much, right? And so I think while it's easy to be like, number of participants, rate of return, there's multiple layers of impact that the state and our communities are benefiting from.
But even at the $19,000 per trained employee in Vermont, that's not bad,
Pretty good.
really. I mean, that's pretty reasonable.
Oftentimes that's meaning they're moving off of unemployment, they're moving off
Exactly.
of food assistance, right? And they're staying in Vermont, that's right.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and I would say that we're also helping to bring young adults into Vermont.
Yeah,
One of the
Okay.
things that that I've learned at BYCC is that there's a whole network of service corps across the country. And core members move from core to core to core, and Vermont has a great brand. And many young people, when they want to explore coming east, they come to Vermont because of the conservation corps.
Sure. And then if I could just follow up that with a question. So what are the eligibility requirements for students to get into these programs?
Need to work hard and have a good attitude.
Okay, so there's no like family income type of
No.
weeding out or anything
No.
like that?
so the way that we recruit, often we have like recruiting partners such as Hireability or the job centers across the state through DOL or schools themselves. And so we are looking for those students who need those opportunities, but it is not a requirement. And part of why we think that's important is because, you know, there are programs that have really strict eligibility requirements and are onerous to get into. We don't want there to be, right? It's like you express the interest, our applications are very easy. We want you in.
Yeah, like Northland Job Corps has
Yes.
requirements that are pretty
Right.
tight to get into. So
That's right.
That's a differentiator.
And sometimes we feel like, especially with federal programs, that obviously they want to be serving the folks who need the most assistance. But in Vermont, I think the spectrum of people we need to be serving needs to be wider. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Representative.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Really great to hear about this wonderful work. I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the employers you work with, where those who are sort of moving right into a workplace. Is that a lot of different employers? Is there a couple of key ones?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's mixed, but also what you're hearing from employers about feedback and how you gather that feedback.
Yeah, because we had shorter amount of time, I took my slide out that showed all of the employers that we work with. But we're working with some of the biggest construction companies all the way down to one person, shows. And what we find is that those employers are very much attracted to sort of the low risk hiring that our programs offer, in the sense that our program staff do a lot of screening of people, trainees, as they're in our program. We learn about them, we understand where they are in terms of their hireability, and can be a partner with employers in thinking about whether someone's right for them. They also benefit from those work experiences where they're trying employees out. And so we've had really good feedback from employees saying, this is exactly what I need. I need people to help me find the right employers, especially our small contractors who don't have a lot of time to be out searching and doing HR things. So we have those commercial builders, we have residential builders, we have folks more focused on weatherization. So our weatherization programs across the state, WAPS, they hire a lot of our folks to do that work, or private contractors who are doing weatherization. We have folks who are in the trail building world hiring folk, and a lot of companies who are doing like land management type projects as well. I'm happy to follow up and show you that list. And sorry, I didn't include it in the presentation.
Doug Levy.
I think, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names.
Right.
You mentioned getting students or trainees from other states. Is there a incentive or a requirement that trainees stay in Vermont for a certain period of time after they leave the program?
There's not a requirement. One of the things that we offer at BYCC is we have a staff position who helps who engages in conversation with our participants to gain an understanding of what they're interested in doing next. That's a really personalized approach. And say someone's interested in forestry, well, then we can connect them with Ronnemuck Maple. If they're interested in solar panel installation, we can connect them with SunCommon. Because we know all of the employers, I'm being a little dramatic for effect here, but because we know all the employers in Vermont, we can really build connections with specific post BYCC experiences. So in that sense, there's an incentive, but there's not a requirement. We think Vermont's a great place and we try to help people drink that Kool-Aid.
Do you track the number of trainees who actually get employed and stay in Vermont?
Not currently, but one of the exciting things that's coming down the pike is we've just hired this new data management position. That's something that this person can help us with.
As you can imagine, housing is always still a challenge for our,
That's
People who want
why I
that.
asked the question.
Yeah.
Representative Austin.
yeah.
I don't know if you've had a chance to look at education quality standards, K-12, have these skills called transferable skills. Have you looked? Okay.
Yes.
So you have, okay.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are
I'm
the,
plugging them
Y-
to
yeah.
businesses. This is like, if you can help kids practice or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, that'd be so helpful for them.
yes. And so that is the area of credit that we're accessing through the flexible pathways to say
Right.
our students are demonstrating these transferable skills and then they're meeting those requirements for graduation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks so much for your work and for coming in and sharing it with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave just our brochure with you for a little bit more information. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
One
Thank
last,
you.
Thank you.
Specific request, if I may, I know we're not time here. I don't want to protect that. Last year, you all were really supportive and included us in your budget letter. If you would consider doing that again, we'd be very appreciative. If there's specific questions you have about that, there are questions we can answer for that specific letter. I hope you'll be.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's really good.
All right, members, we have about 15 minutes until the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets will be joining us. So please come back at 11 o'clock for that.